Hey, I'm Matt, and on today's Matt's Life DIY, it's fall and time to make some easy and delicious apple walnut bread. So let's get to it. First, set your oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to need 1 cup of chopped walnuts for this recipe, and even though it's optional, I like putting it into the apple bread because it really helps accentuate the feeling of fall. Give these walnuts a nice rough cut. You don't want to cut them too fine because then they kind of get lost in the mix and you end up having like a walnut flour. That's weird. So just a rough cut. The recipe calls for 2 loaf pans just sprayed with vegetable oil. You could do that. I'm going to use some parchment paper in my pans today, and I'll show you an easy way to put that into the pan. Take and cut off a piece that will go up at least to the edges of your pan, perhaps a little bit more. And if you have it taller, that'd be nice because then you end up having handles that are really cool to lift your bake out of. Square the pan up, and then all you have to do is from the outside, take your scissors, cut to the corners of your pan. It's so simple. Just push the paper in and it automatically wants to fold in on itself into a cool little envelope of sorts. And so that's cool. You can spray the pan down with some vegetable spray, and that will hold the paper into it. Or if you're brave, look at it. It's just holding on its own right now. Pretty cool. 3 apples. I would advise a medium size. These are a little bit on the smaller side, but they'll work fine anyway. I'm not going to chop them too fine. I'm not going to leave super big chunks either, but I'm going to chop them about a medium, and it'll be delicious. So go ahead and peel each one of the apples, and you may be saying, well, what flavor apple should I use? What kind of apple should I use? Should Granny Smith? Should I use Fuji or Honeycrisp? I really love a Honeycrisp apple. That's great. I think these are Fuji apples. It was just what we had on sale, and that was great. If you got a little bruise on it or something like that, it's okay. It's going to be baking anyway. It's just going to it'll taste just fine. My dog loves apples, and whenever I'm cutting apples for anything, I make a really good overnight oats. And I chop apples and I put that in my oats to soak overnight. And whenever I do that, he is just chomping at the bit, wanting some apple remnants, whatever. If I don't give him a piece of apple, he will be very upset. After you have your apples peeled, go ahead and take your apple core and plunge it into the center of the apple. And just like that. And then you can go all the way through, pull it out, and you have a perfectly cored apple. No seeds, none of that nonsense that's inside. And you certainly don't want this in your apple bread. After your apples are peeled and cored, take your knife and do a nice little chop. I'm going to chop off a little piece for my buddy down here for Tattoo, my dog. He just has to have some apple. Okay, go on, big boy. Okay, so just chop them up. Again, I'm not going to chop super duper fine. I'm not making a beautiful tart or anything like that, so you don't have to chop them really, really fine. And also, I kind of like having some chunks in the bread. After your apples are all chopped up, you're going to place them in a large bowl. This will be the main bowl that I'll use to mix all of my ingredients in. So I'm just going to carefully put those in there. As far as flour, we're going to need 3 cups of flour. 1, 2, and 3. This will be our leavener, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of salt. I'm using iodized salt, so I'm going just like table salt. So I'm going to use just a little bit less. I'm just going to sift that into my bowl, And this is going to take out any chunks. It's not necessary that you do this, but I like to do it just to, in case there's some sort of little bits in there that decide that they don't want to mix. Now that I have my dry ingredients sifted into my bowl, I'm going to take the larger bowl of apples and I'm just going to pour this over the apple mixture. Go. And combine those ingredients so that you coat the apples with the flour mixture. When you're doing this, this helps this helps the apples stay suspended in your dough instead of, if you were to just put these apples into the dough or whatever, into the wet mixture, then there's a greater chance that they would sink down to the bottom and then you have cakey type cake on the top and then fruit on the bottom. So whenever you do this, it gives it a better chance of suspending the fruit. In my second bowl, I'm going to add my wet ingredients. I'm going to start, this calls for 2 cups of regular granulated sugar. That's going to make a very, very sweet bread. So what I like to do is just add 1 cup of regular sugar and another cup of packed brown sugar. Now, I like to crumble the brown sugar up because you're going to end up having these chunks that you don't want to end up having like a chunk of brown sugar in your mouth whenever you're biting into this delicious cake. This cake, I'm telling you, is just like the epitome of fall. I like making it and giving it to friends and families that are in my neighborhood, and they have all just loved it, absolutely loved it. I'm gonna I'm gonna whisk this together a little bit just to kind of get that moving. And it's also I also need 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Cinnamon, just like pumpkin stuff, is also another big fall flavor. Oh my goodness, the smell just hit me. The smell just hit me. Okay, I see these big chunks, and hopefully whenever I'm adding the other liquids to this, it's going to knock out some of these chunks. You don't really want to put this through your sifter either, because then it clogs up the sifter, and that's not a good thing. We're gonna need 3 whole eggs, the yolks and all. And here's another big important tip. Make sure anything you're adding to your baking recipes is at room temperature. If you do not use ingredients at room temperature, like if these eggs were cold and the apples were cold, then the outside of the container, whether it's a cake pan or a loaf pan, whatever it is that you're using, the outside of your bake is going to cook first because the center stays cold. It's insulated by the outside, and you don't want that. Okay, we're also adding a cup of vegetable oil, just regular vegetable oil. And whisk all of this together. Does not look so good right now, but trust me, it will. It's almost like candy. It's so delicious. So I probably should have put that oil in first and added my sugars to it and mixed the eggs as well, because then it would have incorporated a whole lot more easily. All right, now this is looking a whole lot more like what it's supposed to look like. It kind of has like a caramely, a really loose caramely candy kind of texture. Okay, so set that aside. I forgot to actually put my walnuts in. Should have had those in with my apples. So I'm gonna mix those, incorporate that into my apple mixture real quickly here. Just take a few little stirs and tosses there with that. You can just dump it all in because it's not really going to matter. So you dump all this in, and you're going to feel like, man, there's not enough liquid in this bowl to cover and to get all of that flour mixture wet. but you'll be surprised. You just have to be persistent. Now, another thing with this, just like when you're making any other kind of cake, another thing you have to be careful of is not to overmix. If you overmix, then the proteins in the flour are going to activate, and then you'll end up with a more tough kind of product in the end. So what you want is you just want to get all the flour mixture wet, moist. And again, we're thinking, well, this has hardly any liquid at all. Au contraire, it actually has a lot of liquid. Those apples are full of juice, and when this is in the oven baking, it becomes so juicy and moist, so delicious. It will be amazing. You will be so surprised that what you're going to get in the end compared to what you see right now. Look at all this flour in the middle. Man, I got to get to work. Now I'm going to try to evenly put. I know that one of these pans is bigger than the other. That's okay. But it's what I have. So in the end, when this comes out of the oven and you cut into your first piece, it's seriously like heaven, man. It is heaven. Get everything pushed off into the corners, into the sides, even though it will level out while it's baking. You want to kind of do your best to get it incorporated in there. So I'm going to just smash this. Let gravity kind of help it settle down. Settle down now. We're going to cook them for about 90 minutes. This is like an hour and a half at 300 degrees. Whenever it's done, you'll notice that it's going to have a nice, crisp, golden crust on the top. It'll be really delicious. Can't wait to show you. All right, so the bread has come out of the oven. It was in there for 90 minutes exactly. It was crazy how it worked out exactly at 90 minutes. But you see that it's a nice golden brown, and the top has kind of a little crusty kind of feel to it. But you know it's done whenever you stick a skewer in, pull it out, and there's no nothing on it. It comes out clean. So I've got my, these have been sitting out of the oven for about 5 minutes, and I just want to show you how easy it is to just pull and lift that out of the pan. Boom, just like that. It's so nice to be able to just pull the bread out. Watch how easy this comes out. Just like that. And now it is cooling properly so air can circulate under it and totally get to it the right way. A little crumb. It is good. I can't wait to eat it. All right, so the apple walnut bread has had time to cool and relax a little bit, and now it's time to cut into it. So let's get to it. Oh, I can hear the little crunch of the sweet crust, top crust. You don't have to put it on a plate if you don't have the patience for it. I'm really exercising restraint right now. Oh my God. With a cup of coffee in the morning, it's the perfect thing just to hit the spot. It's not super sweet. It's got some tartness of the apple, and then the walnut brings more of an earthy vibe into it. It's so delicious. I hope you get a chance to make this recipe. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and check out some of the other videos that I've got on hand as well. Thanks for watching. Oh my God, this is good. Mm.